The stars looked different from the bridge of the UCS horizon. Commander Jake Harrison stood at the main viewing window, watching the pale yellow sun of the Kepler 442 system grow larger as his ship approached. This was his 15th deep space mission, but something about this system felt strange. The silence was too complete, too empty. "Sir, we're picking up some unusual readings from the fourth planet," Lieutenant Ryan Brooks called from his station. The young tactical officer had been with the crew for 2 years now, and Jake trusted his instincts. The surface scans show artificial structures, but they're old, really old. Jake walked over to the command chair and pressed the come button. "Dr. Martinez, Dr. Walsh, please report to the bridge." Within minutes, the ship's 2 lead scientists arrived. Dr. Lisa Martinez was their xenolinguist, a woman who could decode alien languages faster than anyone in the fleet. Dr. Kevin Walsh was their chief scientist, a man who saw patterns where others saw chaos. "What do you have for us, Ryan?" Jake asked. The tactical display showed a brown planet covered in swirling dust storms. But beneath the surface, the sensors had found something remarkable. Geometric shapes that nature never created. Buildings, or what was left of them. The structures are massive, Ryan explained. They're buried under about 50 feet of sand and rock. Based on the decay patterns, I'd say they're at least 10,000 years old, maybe older. Dr. Walsh stepped forward, studying the readings. "The material composition is interesting. It's not like anything we've seen before. The metal has properties that suggest advanced manufacturing techniques." "Any signs of life?" Jake asked. "Negative, sir. Whatever built these structures is long gone. But there's something else. The buildings are arranged in a specific pattern. It looks like they were designed to protect something in the center." Dr. Martinez looked at the scans with growing excitement. "Commander, if this is a genuine archaeological site from an unknown alien civilization, this could be the discovery of the century. We need to investigate." Jake nodded. They had come to this system looking for signs of ancient life, and it seemed they had found exactly that. "Prep the shuttle. We'll take a small team down to the surface. Ryan, you're with me. Martinez, Walsh, pack your equipment. We're going exploring." The shuttle ride down to the planet's surface was bumpy. The atmosphere was thin but breathable, though they kept their environmental suits on as a precaution. The landing site was about half a mile from the largest structure, which their scans showed was some kind of central building dot as they walked across the sandy surface. Jake could see the tops of buried walls poking through the ground. The architecture was unlike anything human. The angles were all wrong, designed for beings with different proportions than humans. "Look at this," Dr. Walsh called out. He was kneeling beside what appeared to be a doorway, mostly buried but still visible. Strange symbols were carved into the frame. These markings are incredibly well preserved. The metal must have some kind of self-repairing properties. Dr. Martinez was already taking pictures and measurements. "I've never seen writing like this before. The symbols are complex, but there's a mathematical precision to them. Give me some time, and I might be able to figure out what they mean." They spent the next hour clearing sand and debris from the entrance. The door itself was long gone, but the passage beyond was clear. Jake led the way with his flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. The corridor stretched ahead for about 50 feet before opening into a vast chamber. As their lights swept across the space, they could see that the walls were covered in the same strange symbols they had found outside. But more importantly, the center of the room contained a large, crystalline structure that still glowed with a faint blue light. "It's still active," Dr. Walsh whispered. "After all these years, whenever this thing is, it's still working." As they approached the crystal structure, Jake could see that it wasn't just one piece. It was made up of hundreds of smaller crystals, each one inscribed with symbols. The blue light seemed to pulse gently, like a heartbeat. "It's some kind of data storage system," Dr. Martinez said, running her scanner over the surface. "The crystals contain vast amounts of information. But it's all encrypted. Can you decode it?" Jake asked. "I'll need time, but yes, I think so." The mathematical patterns in the symbols suggest a logical language structure. If I can figure out the base principles, I should be able to translate at least some of it. Dr. Walsh was examining the rest of the chamber. "Commander, you need to see this." He was standing near the far wall, where a series of smaller crystal structures were arranged in a circle. These appeared to be communication devices. "Look at the wear patterns on the floor. This room saw a lot of use." Jake walked over to examine the smaller crystals. Unlike the central structure, these were dark and cold. "What do you think they were used for?" "Based on the positioning and the energy residue, I'd say these were long-range communication arrays. Whoever built this place was in contact with others across vast distances." Dr. Martinez had connected her portable computer to the main crystal structure and was running translation algorithms. "I'm getting something," she said excitedly. "The encryption is complex, but I'm starting to see patterns. Give me a few more minutes." As they waited, Jake explored more of the chamber. The walls contained what looked like star charts, showing the positions of various star systems. He recognized a few constellations, but most were unfamiliar. One section of the wall showed what appeared to be a timeline, with symbols marking different periods. "Got it," Dr. Martinez called out, "at least partially." The main database contains thousands of individual files, each one tagged with a location and date. "But Commander, some of these dates go back over 50,000 years." 50,000 years? Jake repeated. "That's impossible. No known civilization in our part of the galaxy is that old." "That's what I thought too, but the dating system is consistent across all the files. And there's something else. Many of these files mention the same star system, our star system, Sol." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What do they say?" "About Sol?" Dr. Martinez's face was pale as she read from her screen. "The earliest entry I can translate is from 47,000 years ago. It's short, but clear. It says, 'Third planet contact attempted. Species classification, extremely dangerous. Recommend immediate withdrawal and system-wide quarantine.'" The silence in the chamber was deafening. Jake looked at his team, seeing his own shock reflected in their faces. "There's more," Dr. Martinez continued. "Hundreds of entries all about Earth, all saying the same thing. Different civilizations, different time periods, but the same message over and over again. They're warnings, Commander. Warnings about humanity." Dr. Walsh had gone very quiet. "That would explain a lot," he said finally. "Why we've never found signs of intelligent life despite decades of searching. Why space seems so empty. Keep translating." Jake ordered, "I want to know everything these files contain. Every detail about who wrote them and why." As Dr. Martinez worked, Jake stared at the star charts on the wall. Somewhere among those distant points of light were civilizations that had encountered humanity in Earth's ancient past. And apparently, the experience had been so terrifying that they had spent millennia warning others to stay away. The question that haunted him as they worked was simple. What had ancient humans done to earn such a fearsome reputation across the galaxy? And more importantly, what would happen when other alien species learned that humanity had finally reached the stars? The blue crystals pulsed gently in the darkness, holding secrets that could change everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe. Dr. Martinez had been working for 6 hours straight, her eyes red from staring at the alien symbols. The coffee in her cup had gone cold long ago, but she barely noticed. Each file she decoded revealed more disturbing details about humanity's reputation among the stars. Commander Harrison sat across from her in the ship's main laboratory, watching as she translated another entry. The rest of the crew had returned to the horizon after collecting as much data as possible from the alien site. Now they orbited the dead planet, while Martinez worked to unlock its secrets. "This one is from the Vorthan Empire," she said, pointing to a cluster of angular symbols on her screen. They were apparently a major galactic power about 30,000 years ago. "Listen to this." She cleared her throat and read from her translation. Military Report 7756. Contact with Sol 3. Inhabitants has resulted in total loss of Expeditionary Fleet 7. Survivors report the bipeds fought with primitive weapons but displayed tactical coordination beyond our modeling capabilities. Recommend. Species classification. Upgrade to Level 9 threat. Jake leaned forward. Level 9 threat? What does that mean? I'm not sure yet, but I found their classification system in another file. Level 1 is harmless. Level 5 is dangerous to individuals. Level 9 is described as capable of extinction-level threat to galactic civilization. Dr. Walsh looked up from his own workstation. That seems extreme for a primitive species. That's what I thought too, Martinez replied. But look at this tactical analysis from the same report. She pulled up another section of text. The Vorthan commander wrote, "The bipeds demonstrated unprecedented adaptability. Within one solar rotation of initial contact, they had reverse-engineered our energy weapons and incorporated them into their own defensive positions. Their willingness to sacrifice individuals for group survival exceeds all known parameters." Lieutenant Brooks, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "Commander, I've been analyzing the tactical data from multiple files. These alien species weren't just afraid of human violence. They were afraid of how quickly humans learned and adapted." Jake walked over to Brooks' station. "Show me what you found." Brooks pulled up a series of charts on his screen. "Look at this pattern. Every civilization that made contact with Earth followed the same sequence. First contact, initial advantage for the aliens due to superior technology. Then rapid human adaptation, followed by complete alien withdrawal. The time frame gets shorter with each encounter." "What do you mean shorter?" "The earliest encounters took months or years for humans to turn the tide. The later ones took weeks or even days. It's like each generation of humans got better at fighting alien technology." Dr. Martinez had found another file, this one from a species called the crystalline hegemony. "This is interesting. They didn't even attempt direct contact. They just observed from orbit for several years. Their report is different from the others." She read aloud, "Species Analysis Report. Sol 3 inhabitants display concerning evolutionary characteristics. They adapt not only to environmental pressures, but to technological challenges with unprecedented speed. Most disturbing, they appear to retain and pass on learned combat behaviors across generations. Recommend immediate implementation of exclusion." Protocol 7. Dr. Walsh stopped his work completely. "They're talking about cultural evolution. Not just biological adaptation, but the ability to learn, teach, and improve fighting techniques across generations." "There's more," Martinez continued. "The crystalline hegemony observed humans for 50 years without making contact. They watched human civilization develop and noted something they called the unity response." "Unity response?" Jake asked. "According to their observations, humans who normally fought among themselves would immediately unite when faced with an external threat. They documented several instances where warring human tribes stopped fighting each other and coordinated attacks against alien scout probes." Brooks pulled up another chart. "That matches what I'm seeing in the tactical analysis. Multiple species. noted that human internal conflicts ceased the moment aliens appeared. One report says the bipeds abandon all territorial disputes when threatened by outside forces. This unity response makes them exponentially more dangerous than initial assessments. Suggested, Dr. Walsh had gone very quiet, staring at his own screen. I found something else. A report from a species called the nomadic Keth. It's only 5,000 years old, much more recent than the others. What does it say? Jake asked. Walsh's voice was strained as he read, Emergency Bulletin. Sol 3 inhabitants have achieved metalworking and agriculture. Predictive models suggest they will develop space-capable technology within 10,000 solar cycles. All vessels are ordered to maintain minimum distance of 50 light-years from Sol system. Under no circumstances should contact be attempted. The laboratory fell silent. Finally, Jake spoke. They were tracking our technological progress. Not just tracking, Martinez said, pulling up more files. Predicting. Look at this database section. It contains detailed analyses of human technological development rates. They were trying to calculate when we would become space-capable. She showed them a complex chart filled with alien mathematics. I can't translate all of this, but the basic concept is clear. They were monitoring our progress and updating their predictions regularly. The more recent the report, the more accurate their timeline becomes. Brooks found another tactical analysis, this one focusing on human warfare. Commander, you need to hear this. It's from a species called the Ethereal Collective, dated about 8,000 years ago. They observed human battles and documented our tactics. He read from the translation. Combat Analysis Update. Sol 3. Inhabitants have developed coordinated siege warfare and multi-terrain combat strategies. Of particular concern is their development of psychological warfare techniques and their apparent immunity to fear-based deterrence. Standard pacification methods are ineffective against this species. Dr. Walsh looked up from his calculations. I've been analyzing the timeline of these reports. The frequency of observations increased dramatically, starting about 12,000 years ago. It coincides with the development of agriculture and permanent human settlements. Why would that matter? Jake asked. Because that's when humans started really organizing, Walsh explained. Before agriculture, we were small hunter-gatherer groups. After agriculture, we started building cities, armies, and complex societies. The aliens were watching us become more dangerous. Martinez had found what appeared to be a collection of direct quotes from various alien encounters with humans. Listen to these observations. This one is from a Vorthan survivor. The bipeds learned our language within 7 solar rotations. They mimicked our technology and improved upon it. When we retreated, they followed us to our landing site and attempted to capture our vessel. She continued reading. From a Keth observer, witnessed bipeds using farming tools as weapons with deadly efficiency. They showed no fear of our energy weapons and charged our positions despite heavy casualties. Their battle cries still haunt my sleep cycles. Jake felt a chill as he listened to these ancient accounts of his ancestors. What else do the files say about human behavior? Brooks had found a section about human psychology. There's an entire subsection dedicated to what they call the human paradox. They noted that humans could be both incredibly compassionate and absolutely ruthless, sometimes within the same individual. One report describes watching humans care for their wounded while simultaneously planning devastating attacks on alien positions, Martinez added. They found this combination of traits extremely unsettling. Dr. Walsh discovered something that made him go pale. Commander, I found a file that mentioned specific locations on Earth. These aliens didn't just observe us from space. They had detailed knowledge of human settlements, cultures, and languages. Which locations? Jake asked. Europe, Asia, the Americas, Africa. They were everywhere, watching every major human civilization develop. And according to these files, they all came to the same conclusion, which was, Walsh's voice was barely a whisper, that humanity was the most dangerous species they had ever encountered. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we never stopped learning, never stopped adapting, and never gave up. The weight of this revelation settled over the crew. They were beginning to understand that humanity's reputation in the galaxy wasn't based on myths or legends. It was based on thousands of years of direct observation and carefully documented encounters. As Martinez continued translating, one thing became increasingly clear. Every alien civilization that had encountered humanity had reached the same terrifying conclusion. Humans were not just another intelligent species. They were something far more dangerous. And now, humanity had finally reached the stars. The next morning, Dr. Martinez made a discovery that changed everything. She had been working through the night, following a pattern in the alien files that led her to a hidden section of the database. When she called the others to the laboratory, her hands were shaking. "I found something big," she said, her voice barely steady. There was a meeting. A galactic council, 12,000 years ago. 47 different alien species came together to discuss one single topic. Commander Harrison looked at the symbols displayed on her screen. Even without being able to read them, he could sense their importance. What was the topic? Us, humanity. They called it the Earth problem. Dr. Walsh and Lieutenant Brooks gathered around Martinez's workstation as she pulled up the translated proceedings. The document was massive, containing what appeared to be days of debate and discussion. The council was called by the Ethereal Collective after they lost an entire research fleet near Earth, Martinez explained. Representatives from dozens of species attended. Some had direct experience with humans. Others had only heard the stories. She began reading from the translation. Council Session 1. The delegate from the Vorthan Empire presents evidence of human tactical superiority. Quote, in 3 encounters spanning 2,000 years, this species has demonstrated capabilities that violate our understanding of primitive civilization development. They adapt faster than our models predict, coordinate better than our best military units, and show zero-fear response to superior technology. Jake felt a strange mix of pride and horror. What did the other species say? Brooks had pulled up another section on his screen. The crystalline hegemony agreed with the Vorthans. Their delegate said, our psychological warfare specialists studied these beings for 50 years without detection. Their mental resistance patterns are unlike anything in our databases. They cannot be intimidated, cannot be psychologically broken, and seem to grow stronger under pressure. Dr. Walsh found a technical analysis embedded in the council records. Look at this. They tried to understand human biology and psychology using their advanced science. The results terrified them. He read from his screen. Biological analysis summary. Sol 3 inhabitants possess redundant survival systems that allow continued function despite severe injury. Pain response is present, but does not inhibit combat effectiveness. Most concerning, they appear capable of voluntary adrenaline control and can enter enhanced combat states at will. Martinez continued with the council proceedings. The debate went on for days. Some species wanted to eliminate humanity before we became space-capable. Others argued for containment. But there was one voice that changed everything. Who? Jake asked. The Ancient Ones. They were apparently the oldest species in the galaxy, and they had been watching humanity longer than anyone else. When they spoke, everyone listened. She pulled up a new section of text, this one written in symbols that looked far more complex than the others. Their delegate said something that ended all debate about destroying humanity. Quote, we have observed the bipeds for 8,000 years. We have seen them survive ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and natural disasters that would extinct most species. Each catastrophe makes them stronger. Each setback teaches them new ways to survive. Attempting to destroy them would only prove their adaptability. There is only one option: complete avoidance. The laboratory was silent as the weight of these words sank in. Jake finally spoke. So they decided to quarantine us? Not just quarantine, Brooks said, reading from another section. They created something called the Soul Exclusion Protocol. It was a galaxy-wide agreement that no species would make contact with humanity under any circumstances. Dr. Walsh had found the technical specifications of the protocol. It's incredible. They established a 50-light-year exclusion zone around our solar system. Any ship that detected human activity was required to retreat immediately and report to designated monitoring stations. Martinez read more from the Ancient One's testimony. They said something else that's really disturbing. Quote, "The bipeds do not simply learn from experience. They create stories, songs, and rituals that preserve combat knowledge across generations. A human who has never seen battle can fight with the accumulated wisdom of 1,000 warriors who came before them. Cultural memory," Dr. Walsh said quietly. They were afraid of our ability to pass down knowledge through stories and traditions. Brooks found a section about human expansion patterns. The Council predicted that once humanity reached space, we would spread rapidly and be impossible to contain. One delegate said, "They will not explore cautiously like civilized species. They will rush into the void with the same fearless aggression they show on their home world." Martinez had discovered something even more disturbing. The Ancient Ones made a prediction that silenced all opposition to the exclusion protocol. They said, if the bipeds unite as a species the way they unite as tribes, they will become the dominant force in this galaxy within 1,000 years of achieving spaceflight. Jake stared at the screen. 1,000 years? That seems fast. Not when you consider human history, Dr. Walsh replied. We went from the first powered flight to landing on the moon in just 66 years. From computers that filled entire rooms to handheld devices more powerful than anything that existed 50 years ago. The aliens were extrapolating from our rate of technological advancement. Brooks had found records of the final vote. The Soul Exclusion Protocol passed unanimously. 47 species agreed that humanity should be avoided at all costs. But there was one more decision that's really interesting. What? Jake asked. They decided to monitor us. Not just observe, but actively. Track our progress toward spaceflight. They wanted to know exactly when we would become a galactic threat. Martinez pulled up a series of monitoring reports that spanned thousands of years. These files show they were watching every major human development. The invention of writing, the development of mathematics, the Industrial Revolution, the atomic age. They were keeping detailed records of our progress. One report caught her attention. This is from only 300 years ago. A Keth observer wrote, Sol 3 inhabitants have developed projectile weapons of significant power. Their military tactics have evolved to incorporate coordinated artillery strikes and mass infantry movements. Estimate space-capable technology. Within 500 solar cycles. Dr. Walsh looked at his calculations. 500 solar cycles would be about 200 years in human time. They were remarkably accurate. There's more, Martinez said. I found reports from the last 50 years. Some species are still watching us. She read from a recent file. Emergency update. Sol 3. Inhabitants have achieved orbital flight and established permanent off-world installations. The exclusion protocol has been breached. Recommend immediate activation of secondary containment measures. Jake felt a chill. Secondary containment measures? What does that mean? Brooks had found a reference to these measures in the original protocol documents. According to this, if humanity ever achieved spaceflight, all monitoring stations were to be evacuated and something called the Final Warning Network was to be activated. Which is what exactly? Jake asked. Dr. Walsh had been cross-referencing data from multiple files. I think I know. The monuments we found on this planet aren't just historical records. They're part of a galaxy-wide warning system. When we achieved spaceflight, automated systems began broadcasting our location and capabilities to every species in the galaxy. Martinez found confirmation of this theory. Look at this. A transmission log from just 5 years ago. Quote, Alert. Sol 3 inhabitants have established interstellar travel capabilities. All species advised to maintain maximum distance protocols. The ancient warnings have proven accurate. They are as dangerous as predicted. The reality of their situation hit the crew like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't been alone in the galaxy because space was empty. They had been alone because every other intelligent species was actively hiding from them. There's one more thing, Martinez said quietly. The Ancient Ones left a final message specifically for humanity, in case we ever found these records. She pulled up text written in symbols that somehow seemed familiar, despite being completely alien. They learned our language patterns from thousands of years of observation. This message is written in a code based on human mathematical principles. Jake's voice was tense. What does it say? Martinez's hands trembled as she read the translation. To the children of the third world, you have found the words we left behind. You know now what the galaxy thinks of your kind. You were never meant to be caged, but the stars were not ready for you. The choice that comes next will determine whether you prove our fears correct or show us that perhaps we were wrong. To be so afraid. The laboratory fell into complete silence. Outside the ship's windows, the stars looked different now. They weren't empty points of light in a lonely universe. They were the homes of civilizations that had spent millennia preparing for humanity's arrival, and that arrival had finally come. 3 days after discovering the Ancient One's message, Lieutenant Brooks made a discovery that sent chills through the entire crew. He had been monitoring deep space communications when his equipment picked up something impossible: active transmissions on frequencies that predated human space exploration by thousands of years. Commander, you need to see this, Brooks called from his station. His voice was tight with concern. I'm detecting multiple signal sources within 100 light years of our position. They're broadcasting on channels that match the ones described. In the alien database, Jake hurried to the communication station. Are you saying these signals are current? Yes, sir. Real-time transmissions. Whatever species created the warning network is still out there, and they're still watching us. Dr. Martinez joined them, her portable translator ready. Can you isolate the signals? If they're using the same communication protocols as the historical files, I might be able to decode them. Brooks worked his controls, filtering out background noise and focusing on the strongest signal. Within minutes, alien voices filled the bridge. Even without translation, the tone was unmistakably urgent. Martinez connected her equipment and began running the signals through her translation algorithms. The first message made everyone on the bridge go silent. Attention all monitoring stations. Code 7 alert is now active. The Sol 3 inhabitants have breached the exclusion zone. Repeat, humans are now active in interstellar space. All ships maintain maximum distance protocols. Dr. Walsh looked up from his own station. Commander, I'm detecting at least 12 different signal sources. They're coordinating a galaxy-wide response to our presence in space. Martinez continued translating as more messages came through. This one is from something called Observation Post Theta. Human vessel detected in Kepler 442 system. Species is investigating archaeological sites. Recommend immediate activation of containment measures. Jake felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. Containment measures? Another signal came through, this one stronger than the others. Martinez's face went pale as she translated. Emergency Council session authorized. Representatives from all surviving species to convene at neutral coordinates. Agenda. The human situation has escalated beyond protocol parameters. Brooks was tracking the signal sources on his tactical display. Sir, some of these transmissions are coming from inside our own solar system. They've been watching Earth directly. Revelation hit like a physical blow. Not only had alien species been avoiding humanity for millennia, but some had been close enough to monitor Earth in real time. Jake wondered how many times human astronomers had looked at the stars. Never. Knowing they were being watched, Dr. Walsh made another disturbing discovery. I'm detecting artificial structures in several nearby systems. Based on their energy signatures and positioning, they appear to be automated monitoring stations. How many? Jake asked. At least 30 within a 50-light-year radius of Earth. They're positioned to observe all major space lanes leading away from our solar system. Martinez intercepted another transmission, this one containing detailed information about human space activities. They know about our colonies on Mars and Europa. They know about our mining operations in the asteroid belt. They've been cataloging every human activity in space for the past 50 years. The scope of the surveillance was staggering. Humanity had thought itself alone in the universe, but in reality, they had been living under constant observation by multiple alien species. New signal came through, different from the others. The voice was older, deeper, and carried an authority that made even the alien languages sound commanding. Ancient One speaking to all observers, Martinez translated. The time of decision has arrived. Human expansion into space was predicted and prepared for. Activate the final assessment protocol. Jake didn't like the sound of that. What's the final assessment protocol? Before Martinez could respond, Brooks detected something new on his sensors. Commander, we have a problem. I'm reading multiple FTL signatures approaching our position. Whatever that protocol is, it involves ships heading straight for us. The tactical display showed at least 6 vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were larger than the horizon and clearly more advanced, but they maintained their distance. Incoming transmission, Brooks announced. It's directed at us specifically. The main screen activated, showing nothing but empty space. But the voice that came through the speakers was clear and spoke in perfect English. Human Vessel Horizon, this is Observer Prime of the Galactic Watch. You have discovered information that was not intended for your species. We must now determine whether humanity has evolved beyond the warnings contained in those files. Jake stepped forward, addressing the empty screen. This is Commander Jake Harrison of the United Colonial Ship Horizon. We're explorers, not conquerors. We come in peace. There was a long pause before the alien voice responded. Your words are noted, Commander Harrison. However, your species' reputation precedes you. We have monitored your kind for 12,000 years. We have seen your wars, your conquests, your relentless expansion across your home world. Dr. Martinez was working frantically to trace the signal. The transmission is coming from multiple sources simultaneously. They're using some kind of distributed communication network. The alien voice continued. You have found the records of our fears. You know what your ancestors did to our kind. The question now is whether modern humans are different from those who came before. Jake felt the weight of humanity's entire future resting on his response. We've learned from our past. We've grown beyond the primitive violence you witnessed thousands of years ago. Perhaps, the voice replied. But your species' expansion into space has followed the exact patterns our models predicted. You established colonies rapidly, exploited, resources aggressively, and prepared for further expansion without consideration for other inhabitants of the galaxy. Dr. Walsh spoke up from his station. "Commander, I'm detecting energy buildups from the alien vessels. They're powering weapon systems." The alien voice seemed to hear this. "We do not intend violence, Dr. Walsh, but we are prepared for it. Your species' first response to unknown threats has always been military preparation. Even now, your Lieutenant Brooks is calculating firing solutions for weapons you do not yet know you possess." Jake looked at Brooks, who nodded grimly. It was true. His tactical training had automatically kicked in the moment alien ships appeared. "This is exactly what we expected," the alien voice continued. "Humans respond to first contact with immediate threat assessment and military planning. This has been consistent across 12,000 years of observation. Martinez managed to establish a more direct communication link." "We're not all like that," she said. "Some of us seek understanding, not conflict." "Indeed, Dr. Martinez, your work in linguistics shows the human capacity for learning and communication. This gives us hope. But you are outnumbered on your own. Shipped by those trained for war." The statement was uncomfortably accurate. Out of the 4 crew members on the bridge, 3 had military backgrounds. Only Martinez was purely civilian. "We have been debating humanity's fate for 50 years, the alien voice explained. "Ever since your species achieved space flight. Some of us believe you have evolved beyond your violent origins. Others maintain that humans remain too dangerous to coexist with." Jake sensed this was the critical moment. What would convince? "You that we've changed?" "That is the purpose of the final assessment protocol. You will be given a choice, Commander Harrison. A test that will determine not just your fate, but the fate of your entire species." The main screen suddenly displayed a star chart showing the local region of space. Several systems were highlighted in red. "These systems contain colonies of younger species," the alien voice explained. "Civilizations that have not yet achieved interstellar travel. They are vulnerable, defenseless, and rich in resources that your expanding civilization could use." Jake began to understand where this was leading. "Your test is simple. We will provide you with the locations of these defenseless worlds. What humanity does with this information will determine whether the galaxy accepts your species or whether we implement the final solution." Dr. Walsh looked up from his calculations. "What's the final solution?" The alien voice was quiet for a long moment. "Complete sterilization of the Sol system. Every human world, every human ship, every trace of your species removed from the galaxy. It is the only way to ensure the safety of other civilizations." The bridge fell into stunned silence. The choice was clear and terrible. Prove that humanity had evolved beyond its violent nature or face total extinction. "How long do we have to decide?" Jake asked. "The test has already begun, Commander. Other human ships are receiving the same information at this moment. We will observe how your species responds to the knowledge of defenseless prey." The alien vessels began moving away, but their message was clear. Humanity was being judged, and the verdict would determine whether the human race had a future among the stars. Commander Jake Harrison stood alone in his quarters, staring at the data pad containing coordinates to 17 defenseless alien worlds. The information had arrived 6 hours ago, and already reports were coming in from other human ships across the galaxy. Everyone had received the same test. The choice was simple but terrible. Humanity could use this information to expand and conquer, proving the aliens' worst fears correct, or they could protect these vulnerable civilizations and perhaps earn a place in the galactic community. But Jake was learning that humanity's response was far more complex than the aliens had expected. Soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Martinez entered, carrying her own datapad and looking exhausted. "Commander, I've been monitoring communications from Earth Command and the other exploration ships. You need to know what's happening." Jake gestured for her to sit. "Tell me." "The response isn't what anyone expected," she said. "Admiral Collins from Earth Command sent out an immediate order. All human ships are to locate and establish protective perimeters around the vulnerable worlds." "We're not conquering them, Jake. We're protecting them." Jake felt a surge of hope. What about the other ships? Captain Murphy from the exploration vessel New Horizons reached the Altair system first. Instead of claiming the planet, he made contact with the primitive inhabitants and offered them defensive technology. Captain Sarah Park from the science ship Discovery is teaching agricultural techniques to a struggling colony in the Vega system. Martinez pulled up communication logs on her datapad. Listen to this message from Captain John Davis of the cargo ship Freedom. He said, "We found a young species being threatened by natural disasters. We're staying to help with evacuation and disaster relief. Our cargo can wait." The pattern was becoming clear. When faced with the opportunity to dominate defenseless civilizations, humanity's first instinct had been to protect and help them. Dr. Walsh entered the quarters, his face showing a mixture of excitement and concern. "Commander, I've been analyzing the alien monitoring signals. They're confused. The alien observers are sending messages to each other, asking if their translation systems are malfunctioning." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "They expected us to attack these worlds within days. Instead, we're helping them. The aliens are having emergency meetings, trying to understand why their predictions were wrong." Lieutenant Brooks appeared in the doorway. "Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the alien monitoring network. Dr. Martinez, they want to talk to us again." The 4 crew members made their way to the bridge. The alien vessels had returned, positioned just outside. Weapons range but close enough for clear communication. The same commanding voice from Observer Prime filled the bridge. "Commander Harrison, we have observed your species' response to the assessment. The results are unexpected." Jake stepped forward. "We told you we had evolved beyond our primitive nature. Your words suggested this possibility. But your actions have created what our analysts call an impossible scenario. Our behavioral models predicted a 97% probability that humans would attempt conquest of at least half the provided targets within the first week." Dr. Martinez spoke up. "Your models were based on observations of ancient humans. We're not the same species you encountered thousands of years ago." There was a long pause before Observer Prime responded. "This presents us with an unprecedented situation. The Galactic Council is convening an emergency session. For the first time in our recorded history, a species has defied our predictive algorithms." Dr. Walsh leaned forward. "What does that mean for humanity?" "It means, Dr. Walsh, that we may have been wrong. Not just about current humans, but about the nature of your species entirely." The main screen activated, showing what appeared to be a massive space station surrounded by ships from dozens of different alien civilizations. The architecture was unlike anything human, with organic curves and crystalline structures that seemed to shift and flow. "Commander Harrison, you and your crew are being invited to attend the emergency council session. You will be the first humans to speak directly to the assembled civilizations of this galaxy." Jake felt the weight of this moment. What will we be discussing? The future of human galactic relations. Whether the soul exclusion protocol should be lifted. Whether humanity deserves a place among the civilized species of this galaxy. Brooks was monitoring the tactical situation. "Sir, I'm detecting over 200 alien vessels converging on that station. This is bigger than just our local observers." Observer Prime confirmed his observation. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy are attending. The question of humanity has become the most significant issue our community has faced in 10,000 years. Martinez was working to establish better communication protocols. Observer Prime, may I ask what changed your minds about us? Several factors, Dr. Martinez. First, your response to the assessment was statistically impossible according to our models. Second, we have been monitoring communications between human ships during this crisis. The conversations we observed were not about conquest or exploitation, but about protection and moral responsibility. The alien voice paused before continuing. But perhaps most importantly, we discovered something in our historical records that we had forgotten. The Ancient Ones left a sealed message, to be opened only if humanity ever defied our predictions. Jake's pulse quickened. What did the message say? It contained a different interpretation of the encounters from 12,000 years ago. The Ancient Ones suggested that humanity's aggressive response to alien contact was not inherent violence, but protective instinct. They theorized that humans fought so fiercely because they were defending their world and their people from unknown invaders. Dr. Walsh looked stunned. They thought we were just protecting our home? The Ancient Ones observed human behavior more carefully than the other species. They noted that humans were most dangerous when protecting others, most violent when defending the innocent. They wondered if this trait could be redirected toward protecting other species rather than just humanity. Martinez was translating additional communications from the Galactic Network. Commander, I'm seeing reports from all 17 test worlds. Every single human ship chose protection over conquest. Some are still there, helping with various problems these civilizations face. Observer Prime's voice carried a tone that might have been wonder. Captain Ellen Foster of the research vessel Endeavour discovered that one of the test worlds was facing a plague. She had her medical team work around the clock to develop a cure. Captain Tony Rodriguez of the supply ship New Dawn found a civilization struggling with famine and used his entire cargo capacity to bring them food supplies. The stories continued to pour in. Human ships across the galaxy had found species in trouble and immediately moved to help, asking nothing in return. The pattern is undeniable, Observer Prime continued. When presented with vulnerable civilizations, humanity's response was universal: protect, help, defend. This behavior is the opposite of everything our models predicted. Jake found his voice. We learned from our history. We decided to be better than our ancestors. Perhaps, Commander Harrison. Or perhaps your ancestors were never the monsters we believed them to be. Perhaps they were simply a young species trying to protect their world from threats they didn't understand. The implications of this realization were staggering. Humanity's reputation as a violent, dangerous species might have been based on a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. Observer Prime made an announcement that would echo through galactic history. The Galactic Council has reached a preliminary decision. The Soul Exclusion Protocol is hereby suspended. Humanity will be granted provisional membership in the galactic community, with full voting rights and access to interstellar trade networks. The bridge erupted in quiet celebration, but Observer Prime wasn't finished. However, this membership comes with a responsibility. Your species has demonstrated an unusual capacity for protection and defense. The galaxy has many young civilizations that face threats beyond their ability to handle. We would like humanity to serve as protectors for these vulnerable worlds. Jake smiled, understanding the irony. Humanity's reputation for violence was being transformed into a reputation for protection. The traits that had made them feared would now make them valued guardians of galactic peace. We accept that responsibility, Jake said firmly. As the horizon set course for the Galactic Council Station, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought them here. They had discovered that humanity was never alone in the universe, but that solitude had been self-imposed by species who misunderstood human nature. Now, humanity would take its place among the stars not as conquerors, but but as protectors. The galaxy's greatest fear had become its greatest hope. The ancient warnings were finally being rewritten.